All right.
Thank you.
All right, ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. And
Joe just disappeared.
no, he's here.
Oh, okay, there he is again. All right.
All right. And ready and go. Oh wait. Hold on. I was typing in the wrong channel.
It's okay.
Yeah. All right. And go.
Now recording.
Welcome to episode 116 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the greatest day in motorsports part 2 edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm the host, and coming back for our second time this week, and we'll reintroduce the cast of characters. Of course, I'm my co-host, Josh Fine. What's going on, man?
Doing good, man. It's a great weekend of motorsports and ready to go on in part 2, what we got a preview for the weekend.
We have two guests from earlier this week back to go and discuss the specific races that they'll be most excited about, albeit all three races are exciting. And we even have a race right now where Raja Caruth is about to go and eat it. He saved it. Look at that guy. Look at that pimp. What a save in 3 and 4 there. I don't know who tried to wreck him there, or he was trying to go past the car that was going 35 miles an hour slower than him. I'll go and throw to Joe Passero of fansided.com, Beyond the Flag, a guy who definitely deserves a credential, unlike Grant Cohn. Thanks for coming back on the GSP. We're getting ready for the greatest day in motorsports, man. And the 600, of course, we're not going to get into actual practice until tomorrow night in qualifying, but it is a Coca-Cola 600 weekend. We already have racing on track right now. And Raja Caruth having to pass Tony Breidinger, that might have been part of it. Oh, yeah, between that and having to avoid the 48 car. That would do that, but he saved it. What a pimp. I want that car now.
Well, thanks for having me back on. I'm really excited, and I'm definitely feeling better than I was last time we talked. Still on the recovery path, so doing good there. But yeah, we already saw some on-track action today for the trucks and the Xfinity. Trucks are going to be racing here shortly after this ARCA race finishes up. So we sort of have an idea of maybe what to expect from the track, not necessarily from the Cup drivers or that next-gen car. So it'll be interesting. You know, there's some speculation right now as to who the favorites are going to be, what might happen, but we're not really going to know until tomorrow night. So we're going to take our best shot with it tonight.
Yeah, and that's really all we can do at this point in regards to both the Xfinity race that, of course, they'll be doing. There's been practice, I guess, in qualifying, but and the Cup race especially. But hey, that's what it's about here on the GSP. And our other guest, the owner and key contributor on IndyCar1909.com, busy today, of course, with Carb Day. Definitely some interesting events that took place during Carb Day practice. The pit stop competition, won, of course, by Penske. It's just there's certain things you can rely on, death taxes, and Penske winning the pit stop competition after they announced that Shell and Pennzoil will be back with them in a wide-ranging deal today in covering I don't know how many different areas. So we welcome back Spencer Neff here on the Grip Strip Podcast. Thanks for coming on again, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Phil.
You're on mute.
Oh. Can you hear me?
Okay. There you go.
So, my mom thought you were hilarious last time, and she loved your bit about being a drunken podcaster, so I've followed your lead. I've got my Alpha King Pale Ale by Three Floyds. Anybody who's familiar with the Indiana area, a great brewery, they've got some great stuff, so... yeah, there's some pretty crazy stuff. We had the first Carb Day with 2 cars involved in an incident since, I believe, 1987. I think Special shout out to Paul Dalbney, I believe his name was, Outfield of 33, for helping me out with that information. We got Newgarden becoming the 8th driver to win for Penske in their 18th pit stop competition win. Got Shell coming on to replace Speedway next year, going to 100% renewable fuel, I think. And so wanted to give a special belated birthday shout out to my dad. His birthday was yesterday, so yeah, without spoiling too much. So we had Tony Kanaan lead in practice. Sorry to bury the lead with all my nonsense. Like I said, it's kind of been Ganassi versus the field. Anybody who's kind of followed me and seen what I've thought about it knows kind of where I stand on that. But, you know, we'll see on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what this whole weekend and these next few days is all about. We have a long weekend, and before we get into that, want to give my condolences from the show and from all of us for the victims of the shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Connecting that to other, of course, serious shooting, mass shootings that have been going on here in the recent days, weeks, months, and have seen so much unnecessary and unfortunate loss of life. It's a sad commentary on our society, honestly, where we have gotten to where this kind of thing is normal, and it's not something we like to talk about on the GSP. Obviously, we like to keep it fun, keep it loose, and talk about racing and sports. But when you talk about what has happened here these last few days and the lack of action or care in segments of our society, it's scary to think what our world has become. And I feel bad and feel so sad for those parents and for those families and for the people that have been so affected here. But I just wanted to say that, and there's no condolences or thoughts and prayers or any of that crap that these certain segments want to go and put out there. Real action has to be taken. People actually have to have a backbone and have a heart, and you have to go and understand that when it comes to these kind of things. But I'll digress. We'll get into this weekend's action here on the GSP, and hope for better days ahead and hope for more positive outcomes as we go along. We will start with Formula One. This weekend, of course, is the Monaco Grand Prix, and it was a Ferrari sweep of Monaco practice, going kind of similar to what has been going on all season. The Ferraris usually run well in practice, but then the Red Bulls respond. In second practice, Charles Leclerc led by 44 thousandths of a second over Carlos Sainz with a 1:12.656. Sergio Perez was third with Verstappen fourth. Lando Norris rounded out the top five. George Russell in sixth for Mercedes, 3/4 of a second behind. Lewis Hamilton 12th, 1.6 seconds behind. Having issues there. They're having issues with their drivability and the ride. So that's something that will have to be looked into for them. McLaren, of course, Lando Norris goes and finishes top five, but his teammate Daniel Ricciardo crashes 2 laps into practice. So unfortunate situation for him there, in the former winner of the Monaco Grand Prix. So we'll have to see if he has to lose spots because of having to replace any pieces or parts on his car. In regards to that, I'm trying to see over there. Other than that, yeah, Alpine's a little bit off. I mean, Alonso's 8th, but Ocon's 18th. Vettel is 9th for Aston Martin, but Stroll is 16th. The Alphas are a little further off than usual. The Haas's aren't as good this week, so right now we will see, I guess, going into the race here. Also, want to go through practice one before you throw to you, Josh. Charles Leclerc was fastest over Sergio Perez in practice 1 by 39 thousandths of a second. Carlos Sainz was 7 hundredths of a second back in third. Max Verstappen 18 hundredths of a second back in fourth. Lando Norris was half a second back in fifth. So basically the same top 5. Russell was 8th for Mercedes, nearly 7 tenths back, and Lewis Hamilton was nearly a second off in 10th. So Mercedes definitely struggling here. Valtteri Bottas had issues. 2 installation laps, gearbox problem, had to park. The Haas's aren't very pacey right now. Williams, of course, having problems. Alfa Romeos, the Aston Martins. So that's something we will see. So right now, Josh, I guess Ferrari, it's going to be back to what we've been seeing most of the year. Ferrari and Red Bull to battle for the pole, battle for this race win. We went into the stat a few days ago that there really hasn't been a winner outside of the top 3, starting outside of the top 3 in this race in many years. So qualifying is going to come at a premium. Having pace is going to come at a premium for sure, Josh.
Yeah, pace is going to be at a premium, and I think with the way Ferrari has been this year, especially at this track, they're looking for a chance to win because last year they tried, they got pole and they were fast with Charles Leclerc, but then at the same time, Charles Leclerc had his issues. He ended up crashing the car and then ended up not finishing the race. So this is basically like their chance to get, I guess, redemption for last year. And I think with the way they've been so far here in practice, Charles Leclerc's put up a really fast time of minute 12 and 6.56 seconds. So the Ferraris have shown a lot of pace between him and his teammates. So I think either one of them can win the pole, Charles Leclerc or Carlos Sainz, and then it seems like in race pace they've got the pace there. Of course, Leclerc being fastest there, and then with Perez was just not that far off. But I mean compared to the way that they are in qualifying, Perez was about half a second off of Charles Leclerc. So clearly the advantage here is with Ferrari this weekend. So if they win the pole, like we've been saying, they're more than likely to win the race. So that's what it's looking like for Ferrari. I mean, win the pole, more than likely going to win the race as long as you don't screw it up with like what they did last year, or with some stupid strategy call or something and give away the race that way. So yeah, I definitely expect one of the Ferraris to win, more than likely Charles Leclerc, who of course he had his incident in the classic Monaco GP a couple of weeks ago. So maybe he's got his bad juju, bad luck out of the way for the Monaco Grand Prix. So we'll see what happens, but that's what it's looking like. And then of course we had incidents throughout the session in second practice. We had Daniel Ricciardo crashing his car and completely totaling the car. So not another thing that has happened to Daniel Ricciardo, having a rough season, rough go at it since moving to McLaren, and it's another knock against him, unfortunately, and looks like if things continue to trend this way, that they probably wouldn't bring him back after this season. But a tough way to begin the weekend. Of course, his teammate had a fifth place in both practices, so looking like at least one of them can be solid in terms of like the midfield points and everything. You mentioned Mercedes as well struggling. So looks like we know who the top contenders are going to be in this race, and then everybody else is going to be basically going for scraps or scalps or whatever as we go along this weekend here at Monaco.
Yeah, that's the real thing now is qualifying tomorrow morning. Whoever gets pole, can Charles Leclerc, being from Monaco, finally break his bad luck that he has had there in his entire Formula One career? Can he go and finally get a finish there? That he's never finished the Monaco Grand Prix. Last year he qualified on pole and crashed the car in the swimming pool complex and didn't even start the race. Handed the race to Fish Lips. I figure that Fish Lips will definitely be up there until further notice. It's kind of like last year when I would pick Kyle Larson every week. I'm just going to pick Fish Lips every week. Because he's won 3-4 in a row anyway. You got Katie Osborne. God love her. She has no personality either. That's why Graham Rahal dumped her. Bruckshot Jones actually won a race, so... Well, when you're going against table scraps, I mean, outside of Rajah Caruth, Nick Sanchez, maybe about 3 other people. I mean, Jesus, I could finish in the top 10 in an ARCA race, and I'm fat, out of shape, and a drunk. I think my Kia would be able to finish in the top 10 in its current form, actually, too. I could run better than the 48 car. But getting back to the Formula One race, qualifying's key. We'll see what happens. Ferrari versus Red Bull. Red Bull, I think, have held back a little bit here today. I don't think we know what their true pace is. Ferrari usually has their cards out on the table at all times. That session is going to determine who wins this race for sure. So we will see about that. And then next week, of course, we'll talk about it on the Gripster podcast, episode 117. And I think the one thing that might be a wild card is that McLaren, Lando Norris might be able to get on the podium outside of the top 2 teams right now. Mercedes doesn't have anything this week. I think they'll have time trying to get into the top 10 in qualifying, which is unfortunate, but other Grand Prix are coming where they might be able to compete a little better. Monaco is a very specific track. Mercedes over the years have struggled there. Recent years, even though they had an advantage and they were able to win in certain ways. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's get into Indy 500. The big news of the day is, of course, Colton Herta's huge wreck. In Carb Day practice, he was running behind Takuma Sato, swapped ends, looked like he was going to save it. On the second attempt, went and smacked the right rear corner of his car and then took off like an inverted airplane on the day that Top Gun gets released. So unfortunate for one of the young rising stars of IndyCar.
It's going highway to the danger zone.
Yeah. The danger zone. They're in the danger zone since they always talk about the danger zone. I'm glad they got rid of the one fat tub of crap that they used to have that said that, but they still have Townsend Bell who constantly mentions danger zone. So we'll see how many danger zone mentions they have during the race. So then you have to take a shot. But unfortunate for Colton Herta crashing there. A lot of work to be done this weekend for up to when the race. Hopefully they're able to recover and have a good chance. Of course, Spencer mentioned it, that Antoine Canan in the number 1 American Legion car, the 2013 winner of the Indianapolis 500, led practice with his teammate Marcus Ericsson in second, 2-time Indy 500 winner Takuma Sato in third, Scott Dixon, the now 6-time or 5-time Indy 500 pole sitter. Sorry, Rick Mears. 5-time Indy 500 pole sitter in fourth. Dryer and Reinbold, Sage Karam, best Chevy. But he's had good speed, and it's kind of Sage Karam's thing to have better race pace, not be able to qualify and make it interesting. It's part of what made him one of the best young talents for many years, the Nazareth, Pennsylvania product. What is it? Let's get through we got that. And go through the rest of that. Winch Power, another former winner, 6th. Jim Johnson, 7th, making, 4 Ganassi cars in the top 7. Pato O'Ward, who just signed extension with McLaren. So talking about Daniel Ricciardo hitting the wall, and then they go and announce an extension with Pato O'Ward. That timing is interesting. And I'm pretty certain that he's going to have a new teammate depending on where he races in this world, whether it's in Europe or in the United States next year. 5 cars on the lead lap. That's cute. The Marco Andretti bringing the Nazareth feel again for Spencer. 9th, the former pole sitter for the Indy 500. Is this Marco's year? No, it isn't. But he's 9th. Felix Rosenquist 10th. Connor Daly, who was able to vacuum his pool and get the Orbeez out of it, is 11th. So at least his pool's usable here for the next couple of days prior to the Indianapolis 500. Trying to go through, Arenas VK only ran 18 laps, so I'm not sure. I guess I'll go to you, Spencer, on that in here in a moment. And Ed Carpenter only ran 23 laps, so muted session for both Ed Carpenter drivers. The Rahal cars are not that fast. Some of the Andretti Autosport cars don't seem to have top speed pace, but trying to see if they have breakdowns. They don't do like 10 lap or 20 lap race, whatever, splits like they do in NASCAR. So Malukas, right rear. Oh, nice. Oh, so root beer float head turned David Malukas. Oh, that's convenient. So that's good. The former driver for Dale Coyne Racing goes and does that. So proving once again why Santino Ferrucci doesn't have a full-time job in IndyCar racing. It's the same thing he did to Arjun Maini in Formula 2 or whatever, and that's why he got fired from Haas. So you can't change the character. You can't change the. I forget what saying it is. Whatever, there's a saying like you.
Zebra doesn't change its stripes.
Exactly, that's it. So I'll throw to you, Spencer, and then I'll go around the horn on what we think about this Indianapolis 500 now. Now that Carb Day is done, and now we're only less than 2 days away from the Indianapolis 500. And who we think will win, I guess who we want to win as fans, and somebody who might be a dark horse candidate. So, Spencer, you have the floor.
Well, said Tony Kanaan was, I believe he and Ericsson, the 1-2, they were the only ones up above 227, so good day for them after, I guess, what I had heard is that Kanaan inadvertently outed himself as one of the culprits behind that Orbeez prank with Connor Daly.
I said that a couple days ago. I figured it was Kanaan and Alexander Rossi, I think was what I believe.
Yeah. And just as a quick aside that I saw on Trackside Online, I guess knowing that Pancho Carter, for anybody who doesn't know who Pancho Carter is, he was the pole sitter in '85. He's a veteran of many 500s. He's worked with Dale Coyne, so he's Malukas' spotter. And I didn't realize his son is, I guess, Santino Ferrucci's turn 1 spotter.
Cole Carter is. Oh, that's not good.
Dane Carter.
Oh, Dane Carter. Oh, yeah, he has multiple.
Yeah. So I'm sure that was a fun discussion. or that's going to be a fun couple days. So, just to kind of go over the second wreck, Lucas was okay. I think, know that they kept, his name, Herta in the infield care center for a little bit longer because they were getting some accelerometer data, and I think that he got cleared, and, he and Malukas are going to backup cars, but they're going to maintain their starting spots, so Malukas is starting 13th, but he's been impressive all month. He's kind of been overshadowed like the other rookies have, or four, I should say, between Johnson and Grosjean, but we'll have to see how he rebounds. I think he'll have a decent day. Herta's starting 25th. He obviously had that great showing at the Indianapolis road course a couple weeks ago. He came from 14th. His dad, Brian, had a strategy call and got him out on dries early in the rain and held on. Really impressive win. So, those will be two of many to keep an eye on. I've said for, weeks, my preseason pick's been Alex Below. I'm not wavering from that, but, I think, your favorites are obviously on the front row with him, flanked by Dixon, getting his 5th career pole, and then Rinus VK, who is impressive in no-toe speeds for a lot of pre-qualifying practices. Led Saturday qualifying. Had Kanan leading again today. And so, those would be the favorites. As far as somebody who I want to win, Phil kind of rained on that parade, but there's still a little part of me holding out hope for that, Andretti curse to finally break. Never know, see if he can make his way up from 23rd, or, Sage has, looked impressive all month long. He's starting 20th.
That's better than usual for him. He usually starts on the last row, so he only has 8 rows to pass or 7 rows to get up from instead of 10. So it's a little bit less adventurous for him.
Yeah, and Santino's starting 15th, which for him is incredibly well. So, he's another one who's been a hard charger in his short career. So see if he can kind of stay out of trouble and avoid things like he has, or like he has in the past, and avoid trouble, the kind of trouble that an incident like today's would get him into during the race. So kind of where I'm at as far as favorites and who I could see as a dark horse, and I kind of had a Carpenter who's starting 4th. I think that, if it wasn't one of the fan favorites that has already won, like Castro Neves or Kanan, obviously everybody here would like to see the hometown guy, Ed Carpenter, win.
Yeah, that would be a big one. Indianapolis kid, family, used to own the racetrack. So many different connections there as kids are growing up. So we don't know how many Indy 500s that Ed Carpenter has left, obviously. I think he's just going to always run it as long as he has his own team. But it sounds like he wants to expand his team as well. So he only just got out of the 20 car this year for the full season. So we'll see what happens with that. But I'm going to throw to you, Josh. Or actually, I'll throw to you, Joe, because I know your storyline and the thing that's brought you into watching this race, probably like many, is one Jim Johnson, the driver of the 48 car, the 7-time NASCAR champion. So he's been a big storyline. He's had a good month or whatever, few weeks, whatever, and qualified well. Has had plenty of media coverage. Was on the Tonight Show. His daughter was became a star on the Tonight Show, so that was cool to see. Fallon couldn't understand or comprehend anything that Jimmy was talking about, which was fun, which is part of why I miss David Letterman having a talk show. Somebody who actually isn't a dweeb and actually is naturally funny and knows racing. But I guess we go on that note. You know, when it comes to NASCAR guys coming to Indianapolis 500, back in the day, the legends like the Allison brothers, Cale Yarborough, ran this race. There's a few other ones that did, and off the top, I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but you had the crossover with Johnny Rutherford going and running NASCAR. I mean, Jimmy Clark, the legendary Formula One world champion, ran NASCAR, and as such, been the old days. And of course, the discussion, I think, on one of the NASCAR radio shows is there's only been two guys that have won the Daytona 500 and Indy 500, and their names are Mario Andretti and AJ Foyt. So the question is that I propose to you, along with, you know, the general NASCAR connections that have been with the Indianapolis 500 over the years, is what do you feel are the chances for Jimmy Johnson to join an illustrious list of two of guys that have won both of those races and two of the greatest race car drivers ever? And to be honest, Jimmy Johnson's one of the greatest race car drivers of our era, of our lifetime. And if you were to pull this off, it would be one of the biggest victories in motorsports history, kind of like what last year's win for Alio was.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, I know last year there were some talks that Jimmy was interested in running the 500, and at that point it seemed like, you know, maybe 2022 was going to be just another kind of half season. And he even said he wasn't planning on driving full-time, and things fell the way they were supposed to, I guess, and here we are. The media coverage has been insane. I personally, as someone who follows NASCAR very closely, I don't ever recall maybe the last time seeing this much media coverage for me for the Indy 500 for a NASCAR driver or someone affiliated with NASCAR coming over to just about any other form of motorsport was probably when Danica went and drove her last Indy 500. That was a few years ago. And, you know, I always encourage when I get to talk to NASCAR fans, whether that's at a racetrack, over Twitter, whatever, I always encourage them, if there's another driver, even if it's a driver who you don't root for on the regular, you should always, if there's a driver trying a different form of racing, you should always try to follow that weekend. See how you like the other form of racing, see how they do. See what you learn, because a lot of times what you learn in other forms of motorsports can come and be helpful in a different form. Now, you know, this is really interesting to me too, because Jimmy, I mean, he's been running really well, it seems, these past few weeks with practices, with qualifying, and that's really exciting as a NASCAR guy to see one of your guys go into a different form of racing and be, seriously, I mean, have a really good car and a good team and have probably a somewhat decent chance of winning is really exciting. Now, can Jimmy Johnson win the Indy 500? That I think is the question that all the NASCAR fans are going to be asking. That's what they're going to be watching for. Realistically, I really don't know. I mean, he's only been driving Indy cars for a year and change. Doesn't really have a full season under his belt, certainly not on the ovals. And he's going against drivers who have far more experience in this style of racing. I mean, this race is not going to be like what you used to see on the 2.5 mile rectangle for NASCAR, right? NASCAR, they get really spread out. You usually have a really long green flag runs where one car, one driver really, kind of dominates the run. And then with some cautions or whatever, things might start to change. IndyCar racing at Indianapolis is really fairly different. You have small packs of cars basically that kind of break away from each other, and their aero package allows them to pass to get runs far easier than any car Jimmy Johnson ever drove at Indianapolis in NASCAR. So this is going to be a different type of race for him. Yes, I know he's got 4 wins in the Brickyard 400 at this track. That's great. I don't necessarily know how much that helps him. I certainly don't think it hurts him, and his experience at the track nonetheless is good. And I mentioned this on the last show, and just 2 minutes ago, it'll be interesting to see if there's anything he learned in his stock car racing days at Indianapolis that he can come and apply to his race in the 500. This is 40 laps longer than the Brickyard 400, so that'll be interesting as well to see how that last 100 miles affects him, if at all. I really don't know. I would think he has a legitimate chance to go ahead and win, but it would take some really hard driving and probably some really bold moves on his part, because the drivers around him, again, they probably know much better, particularly at this racetrack, exactly how to calculate their move. That's something Jimmy Johnson has been learning throughout practice, and even more so than practice, he's going to be learning live on Sunday during the race. So is there a chance? Yes, there is absolutely a chance. Does his name belong on that list of Andretti and Foyt? In my eyes, yeah. This guy is easily the best racer of the 2000s and probably the best of the last 20 years. Anytime somebody asks me who I think the greatest driver in NASCAR history is, I make the arguments for Dale Earnhardt and for Jimmy Johnson, and I seriously believe that. If he wins, or even comes, second, third, with a strong showing, to me, that says, yes, I am the greatest driver in NASCAR history, because not only can I dominate in your sport, I can go in other forms of racing, and I can do it there too on their biggest stage. Now, will it be a disappointment if he doesn't win? I think only if he really truly dominates the race. But, for him to win the Indy 500, just because of the lack of experience in this particular style of racing, I think it could take, a few years probably. But he's in equipment that is clearly competitive, so there's a chance. I'm going to leave it a little bit like Daytona. If you're there at the end, there's enough drafting, maneuverability, and passing to happen where, yeah, there is a chance if you're there at the end.
I think when it comes to who he races for in Chip Ganassi Racing, Eric Cowden being his engineer, having the likes of Hide My Family at Home on his timing stand, helping him as a coach. He has a lot of good people that can help him through this race. And the fact is, it's not like Jimmy Johnson hasn't been through plenty of 500-mile races. It's just that he hasn't been in a 500-mile race at Indianapolis in an Indy car. And it is one of the biggest races in the world. But it's the kind of thing that Jimmy Johnson showed up for in his heyday, in his prime. He showed up for the big ones, and he was able to generally close in the big ones. Now, asking to do that in this spot at this time in his life, with all this media attention on him, it's going to be hard. But if there is a team to be driving for probably this month that could possibly make it happen, he's probably in the best one. And he's got great teammates. He's got one of the greatest of all time in Scott Dixon. He's got a guy who's won this race and been up front in many Indy 500 races in Tony Kanaan and as teammates. And you have the guy defending series champion and they've become very close friends in Alex Palou, who finished second in this race and is still learning. from what took place late in that race last year. And then Ericsson, who has become this solid, quiet, understated shoe, that's where it's somebody that could really surprise. I mean, Jimmy Johnson, it's not out of the realm of possibility. There is definitely going to be a lot of attention on him, and it's going to keep a lot of attention off of other drivers that would generally be favorites. And I guess to you, Josh, who are we, since, Ganassi's getting a lot of the play. Honda with Jess Ganassi's team and the Dale Coyne team has definitely had a lot of good going on for them, as Carson Hocevar is wearing a ridiculous hat. But we go to other people that we should be looking at here in this race. I think we're forgetting there's plenty of Chevys out there, Penske, McLaren, that are out there that could stand out. There's other drivers in this race rookie drivers, just like Jimmy Johnson. Spencer mentioned David Maluka, so of course he got wrecked, but there are a lot of good drivers in this race. This is one of the fastest fields, if not the fastest field in Indy 500 history. This is a very competitive race, only 3 incidents in the, week and a half of practice that they had. So it's a relatively clean deal here. Who else are we forgetting about right now that really could make something happen here on Sunday?
Well, first of all, I will say, going back to what Joe said earlier about the coverage and everything, kind of, if you're trying to get into this as someone not IndyCar, obviously Jimmy Johnson's the focus. For me, it was, back in 2012 or 2013, AJ Allmendinger, 2013, when he came over from NASCAR after, losing his Penske ride, and, a year later with Kurt Busch and then Juan Montoya, both coming over from NASCAR the year before and racing in the 500. That's kind of what sparked my interest in IndyCar racing and, so forth. But to your question, I think for the Chevys in general, I think, Penske, Will Power qualified really well. So I expect him to be up there. Joseph Newgarden, he not quite as good. Obviously, he didn't make the top 12, but he's always kind of there at the end of these races. So I definitely think he's probably a threat. Sage Karam, of course, didn't qualify all that well, but 5th fastest on carb day in race trims. So he's finished pretty well in some of these races in Indy 500 in the past. So he might be a guy that can kind of quietly work his way up through the field and kind of end up being in the top 10 at the end of the day, or possibly a top 5 finish. Do I think somebody like him could actually go out and finish in the podium or go and get the win? Not sure if he has quite the pace to be able to do that, but certainly enough to be able to crack the top 10 at the very least for him there. And last year Pato O'Ward finished in 4th place, and could be he had a chance there at the end. He was very close to Elio Castroneves and Alex Palou, but then last couple of laps got a little tight, and then got passed by Simon Pagenaud there at the end of that last year's Indy 500. So he's somebody that can work his way up there. He qualified well into the top 12, and finished in 8th in final practice here at Carb Day. So he's probably maybe one of the best, if not the best, Chevy that could have a chance to win in this race. So definitely think all these Chevys, especially Team Penske, McLaren, or Aero McLaren SP, I think definitely have a shot to win. And then I think another guy that's a rookie that we haven't mentioned is Romain Grosjean, and he qualified in the top 12, made it into that fast 12, and I think he's got a chance as well, like Jimmy Johnson. If he's there at the end, he might be able to make something happen. We saw what he's been able to do on ovals. Last year he ran well at Gateway in the 51 car, and then at Texas he ran pretty well there. So I definitely think with the way how aggressive he can be, Romain Grosjean possibly might be able to make something happen here in the 500. We've seen what he can do on road courses and the 21 car or the 51 car and the 28 car. So definitely think he's somebody that can possibly be up there at the end if he has a chance. So it's going to be a really interesting race. Definitely think if weather comes into play, obviously if it's cooler, or if we have a lot of cloud cover, could bring in a little bit more track grip, and we have more of a super speedway type race or something like that, or something like if it's sunny outside and track warms up, we might have a race like last year. We didn't really have a whole lot of crashing or yellows or anything. It was pretty green throughout, and then it comes down to the last couple of laps, possibly like where last year we had Helio pass in the last 2 laps of the race and take the win. Could come down to that. I definitely do think that you will have to be in the top, running in the top 5 with 5 laps to go at least to have a shot. Because otherwise, you're probably not going to be able to win the race. And, it's all about pushing yourself and putting yourself in the right position and making the right moves at the end. Talking about the experience for people who haven't run 500-mile races or done it in an IndyCar, you have to be able to find the clean air, whether, running the apron to get clean air to the part of your front nose or front wing, or running slightly outside to offset behind on on the high line sort of, and get clean air like that. And of course, using the anti-roll bars and the weight jacker, make adjustments, and of course have the crew make aero adjustments to the wing front and back, and get a little bit more rotation throughout the corners, and get balance between the speed and handling. So it's going to be tough, to account for all of that, especially for somebody like Jimmy Johnson, who's never done that before. So if he's able to keep up with the track and keep up with adjustments, and as long as he race smart, race clean, people like him, Roman Grosjean, could have a shot at being competitive and possibly stealing a top 5, if not a possible win, if they're fortunate enough. So looking forward to this race, and definitely excited to watch on Sunday.
And I guess we'll go with picks. I mean, before I go and add my 2 cents here for you, Joe, first, who do you think will win? Who do you think? I mean, I think we know who you want to win. And dark horse, and if you're willing, if you need to tap on any of them, that's fine, because we'll throw right to Josh on that.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty obvious. As somebody covering NASCAR, I'd love if Jimmy Johnson won. I would really, I think it would be good for both IndyCar and for NASCAR. I think it would draw a lot of attention from a lot of outlets that maybe don't necessarily normally cover NASCAR or IndyCar. I think it would be great for the sport, for motorsports in general in America. Jimmy Johnson winning would be great. So there's more incentive to him winning than just the fact that he's a NASCAR champion who's coming over to IndyCar, or, there's more incentive to it. As far as who I think could actually win, I do want to stay within the realm of Chip Ganassi Racing, because it seems like they've really run super good, super consistent. But I'm actually going to listen to something Spencer said earlier in the show. I'm going to go with Alex Palou. He's run really well, from what I know at least, over the last year. I won the championship last year, and should be really, really strong. I don't know enough to really pick a dark horse, so I'll go with who was it that we talked about earlier? Was it Ericsson? We'll go with Ericsson.
So fully Ganassi committed there, going all in on the Ganassi team. Not a bad call there by you, Joe. Josh, how about you?
Well, I mean, you took it right out of my mouth right there with Alex Palou, because I think after what he did last year, he really, really wants to win. But I'll go with his teammate starting up front. Actually, no, I'm going to call an audible here, and I will stick with Scott Dixon. I think he's wants to have that second Indy 500 win. He's had all these poles. He flipped over. He was on the pole, and he ended up going in the fence in 2017. Probably should have won 2020. In during the one that was delayed by COVID, got bested by Takuma Sato in that one. So with all these poles that he's got, he definitely wants at least a second Borg Warner trophy. So stick with the Iceman, Scott Dixon.
And what about a dark horse selection there for you?
For
Or
dark
do you
horse,
have anybody like you want to see, like that's your pick to win? Is there anyone you really want to see win? And a dark horse pick.
well, I mean, really want to see Jimmy win, but I don't know if it's gonna happen. I mean, I think it's probably reasonable to expect him to come home better than 10th or better. That's probably reasonable for him. I mean, I think maybe someone else that's possibly a dark horse in this one is. I mean, it's really hard to say, but I'm gonna go with. I mean, I don't know. I will go with. I mean, it's really tough to say, but go with Takuma Sato. I mean, that's not necessarily he's a dark horse. I mean, obviously he's already won this race twice.
Won
But-
the race twice.
yeah,
It's just because
yeah.
he runs for Dale Coyne.
Yeah, he runs for Dale Coyne.
Come on, that's they've had fast race cars. He was running fastest
Yeah.
in tow practice too. Oh, come on, man.
We'll see what happens.
Go and say David Malukas, and that's a dark horse after he got hooked by root beer floathead. At least that's like you're really going out on a limb.
I gotta interject here a little bit. The thing about Sato, and I think anybody who has watched IndyCar over the past decade or so, can attest to this with the no attack, no chance mantra with Sato. You're getting kind of the ultimate wild card in that, yeah, it really wouldn't surprise us if he, goes out and wins or at least, leads a lot of laps and is in contention and ends up finishing up front. But, it also wouldn't surprise us if he, pulls another bonehead move and wrecks out of the race early on. Or, we saw him interfere with Marco Andretti's qualifying lap, and that, was something that, unfortunately, we've kind of seen both sides of the no attack, no chance coin with Sato, even within the past week or so. We've seen him, hit the fence during his qualifying runs and still go 230 plus. So, it's my 2 cents on that.
Okay, I'll give you that. You got the backup there from Spencer there. I mean, the reality is he's liable. He's just as liable to go and lead, 50 laps or 30 laps of this race and be in position to win this deal as he is to go and crash, which is what made him one of the fan favorites in Formula One. He came here and sucked for a while in IndyCar and then found his footing with the Ray Hall and then Andretti and then back with Ray Hall and now with the Coyne Rick Ware car, which that would be hell freezing over if Rick Ware wins an Indy 500, honestly. But the way things are going in this world, it kind of makes sense. For me, this race, I'm just excited about it. The Indy 500, just hope there's no weather issues. It's the one that I look forward to the most of the three, honestly, because we talked about the pomp and circumstance and all the traditions. That's the one that they haven't really. There's the way that the race has been, the way they bring it up and how they bring up all that hasn't changed for 100 years, and it's a beautiful thing. And they'll talk about Jimmy. There's gonna be a lot of talk about Jimmy. There's gonna be a lot of talk about Dixon. But I wonder about Joseph Newgarden. I keep on bringing it up. I'm pretty sure ever since we started the show, I've said this after he won that second championship and all these races he's won. Literally, the only thing he has missing is this race. He wins this race. I don't think he'll have to worry about it. I don't think he has to worry about employment for the rest of his life anyway. I think Roger Penske signed him after he had that huge wreck at Texas and then won at Iowa Speedway a couple weeks later with a busted hand and wrist and all that. He's done everything he's asked him to. He's basically the face of Penske's IndyCar program. They have older drivers there in Winge Power. And Scott McLaughlin's their young guy, but we don't know where that's at. They're probably going to go back to 4 cars eventually. Can Newgarden finally get that last leg to go and fill out his career and join all these legendary drivers that have won for Penske? I mean, you brought up A.J. Allmendinger, Josh, when he ran in 13 in the 2 car, qualified well. And if it weren't for a seatbelt coming loose, he might have been an Indianapolis 500 champion. And who knows where A.J. Allmendinger's career might have went if it were for that. I mean, hell, where would Joey Logano's career be if it weren't for the suspension that happened to A.J. Allmendinger that knocked him out of that Penske ride in NASCAR? So, I mean, there's a few people that we can connect back to that. There's so much intrigue. There's so many great drivers. I mean, Dixon, the fact, for as great as he is, he's one of the greatest IndyCar drivers, one of the greatest race car drivers I've ever seen. And he's been class. He's been the same guy that he was at 19 years old when he won his first race at Nazareth in a Pac West car as he is now all these years later with 3 kids and married and the whole bit and 5 Indy 500 pulls. But if he can go and get another win in this race, it would be huge. Winning one is great as it is. I mean, it doesn't matter. He's only won one. The fact that it doesn't take anything away from how great he is. Michael Andretti would love to say he has one, amongst many others. And Nigel Mansell in '93 should have probably won that race. You know, Scott Goodyear would love to say that he had won the Indy 500. But Dixon really wants this one, I'm pretty sure, and wants to pull this one off. And I think it would be hard to pick against him. We've discussed that. I've picked him the last few years. I'm not going to do that this year. I figure that might help his cause. To me, looking at this race, looking at what we've got coming along for who could stand out. I mean, you wonder about some of these teams that have struggled so far during the month, and what has happened, and what can they do here in this spot, and in the race, in race trim. I think that would be a question. I think Newgarden definitely has a chance to win this race from where he is. I mean, you brought up willpower. I mean, I'm picking. I'm going to go and pick Joseph Newgarden to win this race on Sunday, because it's Penske's racetrack. He literally owns it now. He used to own it because he's won more Indy 500s than anybody else, and poles and everything. He owns it now. Joseph Newgarden comes through and wins the Indianapolis 500. It wouldn't surprise me if Alex Palou won this race. It wouldn't surprise me if some of these guys, like I think Rinus VeeKay is one that after the experience of last year could come through. Of course, he's working out the possibility of maybe moving on. So there's that aspect going on with him. If he can win the Indianapolis 500 and join Arie Luyendyk as a winner from the Netherlands, it would be huge for the Netherlands, for him, for his family, for Rinus VeeKay. Who do I want to see win? I want to see Pato O'Ward win, of course, because he's my driver. I wouldn't mind Juan Pablo Montoya pulling it back, bringing it back old school, and making it 3 Indy 500 wins. He's a gray beard now, but the fact that they have such a great connection, him and Pato, it reminds me, Pato O'Ward in a lot of ways reminds me of Juan Pablo Montoya in his prime. So I would like to see one of those guys win it, of course. In regards to a dark horse candidate, I think I'm gonna, because I went with Chevys. I've been going Chevy, big Chevy here as a guy who's not really a Chevy guy, but somebody who would be a dark horse candidate that I would look at in regards to this race. I mean, a lot of them have been hit so far. You know what? And since Josh went with a former Indy 500 winner, I'm going to go with a former Indy 500 winner. I'm going to go with Simon Pagenaud. You're talking about the Meyer-Shank Racing team. They're the defending race winners here. Pagenaud has the experience, of course, from a couple of years ago, winning the pole and winning the race. So why can't he go out there and win his second Indianapolis 500? He's kind of had a rough year. At times this year, it hasn't been the greatest start to his career at Meyer-Shank in an Indy car. Of course, they won the Rolex 24, so that was good. So how about Simon Pagenaud going and pulling it through? He's going to have to be mid-pack, but he has a good chance. They have good cars. Of course, Helio Castroneves is going to be starting in row 9 in his play to become a 5-time winner at Indianapolis to join Jeff Gordon, who won 5 Brickyard 400s, and Michael Schumacher, who won 5 U.S. Grand Prix at Indianapolis, to join the 5-time club. And to break that illustrious mark, he would have to come from row 9. That would be pretty big if you were to do that. So we will, of course, discuss the Indianapolis 500 as well on the GSP here next week. So, Joe, it's your turn. Coca-Cola 600 time as we're doing the invocation and the national anthem and all for Truck Series race. Xfinity we can get into briefly as well, but the Coca-Cola 600, longest race of the season for the NASCAR Cup Series. They'll be running that in the evening, 6:18. Race start, practice and qualifying will take place on Saturday evening, Saturday night after the Xfinity race. So that'll be a good ticket for people who go to Charlotte tomorrow. You'll get the Xfinity or you've already had Xfinity qualifying and all that in practice. I always think about it like it used to be, but so Xfinity qualifying already in practice took place. So you'll get the race tomorrow afternoon. You'll have a little bit of a gap, and then you'll have the race, or you'll have practice and qualifying for the Coca-Cola 600. Yeah, she got those things. So we will get into that. And, oh, look, Kurt Busch is in the booth. Oh, well, yeah, he does that for trucks because they have to have somebody that actually has a clue because he's around 2 dopes. That's why they had Corey LaJoie in there earlier because he's the only one that has a clue. But, yeah, Joe, let's get into the 600. Let's talk about what we should expect. Is it going to be the Hendrick and Gibbs continuation that we have seen the trending here in recent weeks? Can Gibbs destroy like they did at the last 1.5 mile racetrack, or can Ford actually show up for the first time in weeks? Yeah, Ryan Blaney, of course, won, then lost, then won the All-Star race on Sunday. So he had a pretty dominant car in clean air.
Yeah, so, this is interesting because we usually don't have practice the day before the 600-mile race. Practice usually starts Friday, and if you remember way back when, before COVID, this was one of the races that most years got that third practice. A lot of times there were only 2 practices. Key races like the 600 being so long usually got 3 practices. And even last year, under the no practice protocol for the most part, the 600, I believe, was one of 8 races where we got practice, and that happened the same night as the trucks. So we knew on Friday what more so to expect for Sunday. So this is going to be a real challenge then for the teams, right? They're going to have a handful of hours to do their work between end of qualifying and the start of the race. If anybody wrecks, they're making their lives a lot harder for the 600, for not only their team for having to prep the car, but also for the driver themselves during the race, probably having to start at the back. You ask about this Gibbs versus Hendrick show. Yeah, it's going to continue. I fully expect it to continue. I'd be shocked if it didn't continue. Looking at, and I went to North Carolina to the Fox Sports studio to rip a few pages out of Larry McReynolds' grand old notebook here. But, I went ahead last night and I looked in preparation for the show at the last 15 Coke 600s. And if you look at them, 4 of those 15 have been won by Hendrick, 3 of them by Gibbs. The only other team to come to at least 3 wins has been Richard Childress Racing, 2 by Kevin Harvick, 1 by Austin Dillon back in 2017. Even Penske in all of that time has only won it twice. And arguably, one of them was a little bit of a steal in 2020 when Chase Elliott had easily the best car at the end of the race. And pit strategy ended up not playing out to their liking after that late caution. And Brad went on to steal that one away. It's really interesting, though, because, the divide, the gap is so big. Ford, in those 15 years, has 1 win. And that was that 2020 race in the 600. Chevy holds 7 of those wins. Toyota holds 5. Just everything. Everything about that screams it's going to be Joe Gibbs Racing versus Hendrick Motorsports. Now, how do you make your pick, right? I think in more recent years, right, like last year, Hendrick Motorsports dominated the race. They were coming fresh off a 1-2-3-4 finish a few weeks prior at Dover. And they were running 1-2-3-4 again really late in that race. Kyle Busch broke them up, ended up finishing 3rd to split up those Hendrick cars. But really, last year, you want to talk about that. Larson led 300, I believe it was 327 laps of the 400, swept the stages, won the race. It was the Larson show where Elliott kind of showed up for a little while and Kyle Busch was there too. That was, last year, obviously, but it just goes to show, really, it's Gibbs and Hendrick. And you want to throw back a few years even more. You had a string of years, right? 2019, Truex hits the wall, still wins the race. Kyle Busch in 2018 led 377 of the 400 laps. Very similarly to Larson last year, won all the stages and the race. And then, of course, you had Martin Truex Jr. in 2016 in the Furniture Row Racing Toyota affiliated with Joe Gibbs Racing, led 392 of the 400 laps. That's just how it's been. It's been Toyota versus Chevy. It's been Hendrick versus Gibbs. And I see no reason, based off of the way that this season has gone, why it would be any different. I will say, this year, I do believe that the Gibbs cars have a little bit of the upper hand on these 1.5 mile racetracks. The last time we were out at 1.5 miles, I'm throwing Texas out the window. It was the All-Star race. People were on special strategies because it was a short race, so forget about that. Kansas. Kurt Busch won in the 2311 Toyota, so it was a Toyota win, a team also affiliated with Joe Gibbs Racing. But Kyle Busch was very strong there at the end of the race, arguably just as good as his brother, just didn't have the track position. You had Hamlin run good throughout that race. Christopher Bell has run quietly well over the last month now. He really has surprised me, and it surprised me that nobody's really talking about it. He has run extremely well, a number of top 10s, both in stages and in the overall results as well. I gotta think that it's Toyota. It is a little bit better suited for this particular track. I know Alex Bowman won the first 1.5 mile race of the year at Las Vegas. Let's be honest, if that late caution hadn't come out and they hadn't made a strategy call, that win was not happening. You needed pieces very late in the race to fall right in the exact place, and they just happened to. You talk about the Atlanta race, right? Another mile and a half. I'm not even counting that. That to me was not a mile and a half race. That was the equivalent of a Daytona and Talladega. So sure, Hendrick won that. When you want to talk about a mile and a half race with the package we're running, Atlanta means nothing to me, that last race. So in looking at the last 11 mile and a half tracks, so that takes you all the way through the start of 2021 with their first mile and a half race last year. There's, again, it's a very Gibbs and Hendrick split. I will say Hendrick has a little bit more wins than Gibbs, 6-2 in that respect. And overall, the manufacturers 7-3 in favor of Chevrolet over Toyota. So really, no matter what way you slice it, this is going to be Gibbs versus Hendrick. I think the statistics lean towards Chevrolet and Hendrick. I don't necessarily believe, based off of some more recent performances, that may be the case come Sunday night. Now, the one thing I will say to Hendrick, even though I just said I really don't know that they're going to have the cars against Gibbs, is Larson. Larson has been a weapon on these mile and a half tracks. You go back to last year, right? Since the start of last season, 4 wins on mile and a half tracks, right? And even if you look at those races that he lost, I mean, Miami in 2021 when his teammate William Byron won, he finished top 4. Obviously went on to win at Las Vegas, was a big win. The next one at Atlanta last spring, he lost it with 10 laps, finished second. I mean, he had the car to beat all day. Kansas last year when Kyle Busch won his second win on his birthday, Larson dominated that race before having some trouble late in the race. Obviously dominated Charlotte, Las Vegas, the playoff race last season. Larson really dominated the first portion of the race and just got caught up in bad strategy and never really recovered. 1-2 in a row, Texas and Kansas in the playoffs last season. And even Las Vegas and Kansas this year. I mean, he had cars that could have won. He finished second at Las Vegas and was running at the front in Kansas for quite a bit. So he's really, I think, as a favorite, the driver is the favorite. Kyle Larson. I think as an organization and a manufacturer, Gibbs and Toyota, based off of recent weeks, to me, that argument holds a little bit more water than simply reading the stats and saying, well, Hendrick and Chevrolet are up on everything, so I'm going to pick them. Quick note about the track itself, not necessarily about any drivers. This track, even though mile and a half, is actually pretty unique at this point, given how they've changed Atlanta and Texas and some of those other cookie-cutter racetracks. In addition, this track has a massive bump through turns 3 and 4, and actually, Sam Mayer, who won the Xfinity pole earlier today, just about hit the wall. So I don't really know how he saved that. I don't know how he won the pole. Either he was just that fast or everybody else was just that slow. But that is going to be a concern. In addition, worth noting, the PJ1, or rather the tire resin, not the PJ1, tire resin has been applied to the track. They ran the Tire Dragon and the resin over the outer lanes of turns 3 and 4, as well as 1 and 2 earlier in the week. Now, NASCAR has stated they do not have the intention after the trucks or the Xfinity race to reapply. So really, it's going to be a little bit wearing throughout the weekend. However, if I remember correctly, last year they did the same thing. They ran everything down earlier in the week. They let it sit for a few days. Cars got on track, and they never reapplied. And at this track in particular, it never really seemed to wear away. I remember, because I was at the race last year. I was there for the triple header weekend. And I remember the entire 600, Kyle Larson, you might run the inside line about the first 10 laps of a run. After that, everybody had to be at least one lane up where the resin started, or you were not making speed. So the resin is definitely going to be a key factor. I don't expect drivers to stay on the bottom for too long. In fact, some drivers may completely opt to just not run the bottom at all. The grip is definitely going to be up high. It'll be interesting to see how much it wears. Generally speaking, the resin seems to wear more during the day when it's hot out and slick. But two of these three races, for the majority of them, happen under the moon. So I don't really know that one race under the hot sun tomorrow for Xfinity is going to do enough damage to where the resin is really hurting for Cup. So definitely don't expect too many drivers to be on the inside. Not tonight's race, not tomorrow's race for Xfinity, and not Sunday's race for Cup.
All right, good in-depth analysis there of what we should see. I mean, obviously, we have a race that's about to start as we're doing this show right now. We've had an arc of farce that took place before that as well, won by Bruckshot Jones. So I'll throw to you, Josh. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, the Gibbs-Hendrick trend that we have seen over recent years is starting to continue or start to happen now with this new car. Who are you looking for this weekend in regards to choices in the 600? And I guess if we have to look at a Ford, I mean, is there somebody outside of the Penske stable that could possibly go out there and do something? I mean, I know there's one particular guy that would like to. He hasn't won in a while.
Yeah, of course, he hasn't won in a while, and I think you're talking about Ryan Blaney, who has not won in a while, hasn't won this year, and had a chance, last week at Kansas. He was running top 5 for a bit, then faded to 12th towards the end of that race. But it depends on where he qualifies. If he's got speed, obviously, Ryan Blaney's been one of the better drivers in the series so far. And finally won at the All-Star race for his first win in 2022, but it's when he finally wins, it's the one that doesn't actually count for anything. So could be something to watch for Ryan Blaney. Obviously, he's second in the standings and has the most poles. So if he qualifies up front, they're able to keep up with the track throughout the race going into the night. Could be there at the end and possibly steal one from Hendrick and Gibbs there. I think another guy that haven't mentioned. I mean, obviously we know Hendrick's gonna be fast, particularly Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. I think maybe or William Byron, one of those two or three. But I think another guy you have to look out for is Trackhouse, specifically Ross Chastain. Remember back in the first mile and a half track, Las Vegas, they led a lot of laps there, and they were possibly a threat for the win, but ultimately ended up finishing in third place, leading 83 laps. Atlanta obviously is turned into a super speedway, but I mean, obviously he led 42 laps at that race, and ran solidly in the top 10 at Kansas, another mile and a half track. So it's going to be interesting to see what Ross Chastain can do. He's been running pretty solidly. Obviously, won 2 races this year. Kenny had a third at a mile and a half track, where the majority of the races are going to be in the playoffs on mile and a half tracks. So if he can run well up front or close to it here at Charlotte, could be a good indicator of where that team's going to be at the at the time of the playoffs when that time comes. I think another driver you have to look at is Bubba Wallace. Of course, he has been uneven for most of the year, but I think with the way 2311 and Toyota is going, I mean, it has to at some point trickle down to somebody like Bubba Wallace, and ran pretty well at Kansas, probably one of the better races he's run in his career in the Cup Series, and finished in 10th and probably could have finished a lot higher than that. So possibly could be a threat for the top 10 last year. Ran somewhat solidly. I think he finished in 11th in the 600 last year. So if he can keep himself out of trouble, I think he's a guy that could possibly be a surprise, not a surprise, but someone that it could end up being in the top 10 that we haven't really seen be in the top 10. Maybe things are beginning to turn around for not only the 45 car but the 23 at 2311. So we'll see if that Toyota finishes up front. I think another Ford that hasn't really had a whole lot of success this year, but he's been solid on the mile and a halfs, and former 600 winner as well as Kevin Harvick. He's 11th in points right now, but hasn't run all that well throughout. He's been uneven throughout this year. Hasn't really won too well in the mile and a halfs out for the most part. I mean, all the mile and a halfs finished outside the top 10, and Ford has been lacking in speed, but traditionally the 4 car is the best of the Fords, traditionally speaking. So I think he's won this race before, and it's a very long race, and he's had experience in these races. So could we see a guy like Kevin Harvick finish in the top 10 possibly, and maybe this is the beginning of the turnaround for Ford. He has not run up front at all year, only led 13 laps so far this year, and Stewart Haas has not had any pace at all, really, outside of one win from Chase Briscoe. So we'll see what happens, but I think that's another Ford that you could potentially look at here in this race. So I think most part Joe's already been through it. Probably expect this to be another Hendrick versus Gibbs fight, which for as parity wise the season has been, we've only had 2 drivers that have won with multiple wins, and it doesn't feel like a Hendrick versus Gibbs type of season like maybe we would have thought, where you have multiple wins between all the drivers, but almost all of their drivers have won one race, and it's been pretty solid in terms of that. So Hendrick continuing to be up front with Byron and Larson, and Chase Elliott beginning to come into the fray, and then you have Kyle Busch, Danny Hamlin starting to get back into form, and then Kurt Busch, in the rest of 2311. So, and Chris Bell also. So all those drivers could be a potential threat to win, Martin Truex included as well. So we could see something from any of those cars, but expect a lot of I don't know. I feel like this race will probably be similar to Las Vegas or Kansas, and expect a type of racing maybe that we saw at Kansas at that. So we'll see what happens, but safe bet is to probably pick from any of those 2 organizations the winning car.
Yeah, I would say so. I'll get into that in a moment. I don't know, Spencer, are you, I know you're more in tuned on the IndyCar side, but do you give, at least in this case, we go and swing it the other way. I'll swing it to you for the 600. Do you spend any time after you are at the racetrack, or do you catch a little bit of the 600 in your post-Indy 500 recovery, whether you're at the racetrack or at home? And any thoughts on what we're going to see this weekend?
I haven't followed NASCAR as much lately, so I'm not able to kind of provide any more than what Joe and Josh have already touched on.
All good.
I'm I'm sure at least some of your viewers and maybe Joe is familiar with the random fantasy game that Steve Lavender does. So I drew Michael McDowell this week, so hope to see him.
Maybe it becomes fuel mileage and he can go and drive through somebody like he did when he won his 1 Cup race.
I'm hoping for just the top 20, honestly. So
that would be progress for the Front Row Motorsports team. Their truck series effort is pretty good this year, but the Cup effort has struggled for sure.
Oh, I know. But as far as this day, especially, honestly, I just kind of end up falling asleep during the 600. I'll go out to dinner during the race and catch maybe a little bit of it. But uh, to see between those the three races we got this weekend, hopefully it'll just be a fun, competitive, exciting day.
Yeah, hopeful it won't be as competitive. I would think Monaco, because it's not really a race. It's more about the glitz and the glamour and just being there, and then a bunch. It'll be very processional. I think the Indy 500 will be the show. Hopefully, the track comes in this weekend at Charlotte to make it a good race. I mean, right now the Truck Series is putting on a good show. So,
well, to borrow a quote from the late great Murray Walker about Monaco, anything can happen in F1, and it usually does. So,
yeah,
it's probably way outside the realm of any reasonable expectation, but let's hope for another 96 and go nuts.
that would be something. Olivier Panis from 14th won that race. His only win in Formula One, the last win for Ligier as a team. 4 cars finished that race. One of the only races that didn't see either Damon Hill or Jacques Villeneuve, the 95 winner of the Indianapolis 500, or Michael Schumacher. I'm trying to think of who else won in 1996 off the top of my head, but that really seems like all of them. Yeah, that would be something, because I would actually bring Mercedes into it because of how bad their car is driving. Yeah, for me, I think I would say Chris Bell. Let's get a little bit out on the realm. He's only won one Cup race in his career, but him and Adam Stevens, I think, are starting to figure things out together. And Chris Bell is one of the most talented drivers in this sport. People know that. Toyota has invested a ton of money in him. This has been a place where has been a launch pad for legendary drivers and to win their first race. Of course, Jeffy in 94, Bobby Labonte in 95. Other guys have won there over time. Other people have won their first race in the 600. Rudy is the one that I always get a kick out of, him and Casey Mears. But the fact is, I think Chris Bell, if he can win, it's been over a year since he's won a race, and it's been kind of a struggle at times. But the Gibbs cars are good. It wouldn't be shocking. Both Joe and Josh have went into it. I think it's a good time for him to make that stand now. If he can go out there and win this race and solidify himself in the playoff, it would be a big spot for him. I think Truex, you can never count him out in a big, long race like this. It hasn't been his best year, but the fact is, this is a spot for him to do something. Clyde, this is one of those big ones. He's had a hard time closing in these big spots. Can he go and finally get over that hump, in a sense, and win one of the majors? His dad there's the reason why his dad is $1 Million Bill. He won 3 out of 4, but the one that he didn't win, Joe brought it up earlier this week, was this race. Davey Allison legendarily won the first 2 legs of the Winston Million, winning the Daytona 500 and the Coke 600 in 92. Wasn't able to win he won the Winston 500 and he won the Daytona 500. He didn't win the Coke 600 because he would have won the Winston Million. Dale Earnhardt won the Coke 600 that year. There you go. I corrected myself. And then, of course, Larry McReynolds trusted a random guy to read a weather map and gave away the Southern 500. But yeah, it would be something for Clyde to do. I think that's somebody else we have to look at. The usual suspects are going to be there. The Kyles, Larson, and Busch. You're going to have Kurt Busch, I think, is going to be up there. He's going to be amped up to try to go and get one. He's won this race before. Those two, of course, have won the races we mentioned before. It's the 600. It used to be a race where somebody could pull off a first win. I think in Bell's case, it feels like a first win since it's been a long time for him. But I think if there is somebody that can win their first race, is Tyler Reddick. RCR has the prior history, of course, as Joe has mentioned, and Reddick has just been knocking on the door. At some point, this has to happen. Maybe it happens at Gateway next week. I don't know, but it's like at some point it has to happen for him. Him and Suarez are on the cusp with their Chevy programs to go out there and possibly win. So that would be the people I would look at as somebody who could possibly get a first win this weekend. But I'm honestly thinking Christopher Bell. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was a Toyota benefit. It wouldn't surprise me if it was a Hendrick benefit. It wouldn't surprise me if basically all the Toyotas and Chevys fill the top 10 and the first Ford is Ryan Blaney outside of that. I'm just hoping for Stuart Haas as a Briscoe guy that they show a little bit of pace. Harvick, of course, a multiple-time winner of this race, showing pace as well. They're good at times in qualifying, but they're not able to bring it to the race itself. I'd rather they not qualify as well. It might suck for pit choice, but you actually go and race better. We're getting into a long stretch of races here of different types of race tracks where if they can actually get some momentum, it would actually be really, really good for them. But we have to see what happens with that. This weekend, there's news that's on J-Ski talking about ESPN looking at rejoining the NASCAR coverage, which would be something. I don't know who the hell they'd have at that point to put on, because Doc Punch retired. And
get Alan Bestwick.
Yeah, well, Alan Bestwick should be on NBC right now, honestly, but I do agree with that. But he'll be doing the SRX. He's the IMS announcer, so that's great. So they at least IMS knows, and Roger Penske knows how to hire good people. But there is that. There's also the news that Kimi Raikkonen is going to be making his Cup Series debut at Watkins Glen, which I just want to have a press conference with Kimi Raikkonen with the NASCAR media. That would be the greatest. If he says more than 25 words after his initial whatever statement, I'll be impressed. Pockrass, there's going to have to be over-unders, like who's going to, between Pockrass, Gluck, there's going to be people that actually show up to Watkins Glen this year, I think, just to go so they could do the presser for Kimi Raikkonen to see if the guy actually has a pulse. That would be like, I'm looking forward to that. It'll be cool to see him. I think what would be even better is if there's an interaction between him and Dali. That if a Guy Ocho can show up, Mr. 305 shows up to the racetrack and he sees Kimi Raikkonen and they can start talking about liquor and stuff, and then maybe we can get a little bit of personality out of Kimi, that would be good.
He's going to need a lot of the drink if that happens.
Well, it is the former home of the U.S. Grand Prix, and there was plenty of partying and debauchery that took place back in the heyday at Watkins Glen. Lots of fires and probably a lot of mess that was left in the infield and the outfield of Watkins Glen International and stuff. So I think that will be cool to see. I'm looking forward to that greatly. Maybe some of the interactions between him and Ross Chastain, because he's a watermelon farmer, and Kimi Raikkonen will be like, I've used watermelons like that before. I've drank plenty of vodka out of them, or something like that. I don't know how he talks, but I have to go and
shut up. I know what I'm doing to the spotter.
No, he definitely won't be saying that, because when he's having to drive around cold custard or some guy, he's like, what the hell is this guy doing? I'm like, he's trying to drive right through me. I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to wreck him. And it's like, no, Kimi, we need this car. Dale's going to have to do another show if you go and wreck this car.
You guys are assuming that he's not going to just skip his press conferences to take a shit.
That is true. That is true. He has been known to do that sort of stuff. And in NASCAR, it's not like it's mandatory. So he might lose his ability to speak English like some of those guys did in front of Congress when they were getting tested for talking about steroids. So it's possible they'll say, oh, he has to miss his press conference. He got hung over yesterday in the city, so he needs to recover. So that's entirely possible. So
I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to interject here for just a quick second. Not particularly about Kimi, but I gotta say, I mean, if for NASCAR fans who have been longtime NASCAR fans, obviously we had the height of the 2000s, right? And then the Car of Tomorrow came in, some TV numbers went down, some attendance went down, and it's something that gradually NASCAR has been recovering from for a while, right? I mean, NASCAR was for a while basically up with the big four American sports as part of a big five, and it's lost a little bit of flair since then. But I gotta say, this is a really exciting time to be a NASCAR fan, to be able to talk about your 7-time champion going into the Indy 500 with a legitimate chance to win. But not only that, and drivers going out like Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson on the dirt and in IMSA, right? And actually, funny enough, I was in New Egypt this past Tuesday night after filming the show on Monday, and Stuart Friesen was racing his modified about 30 minutes away from where I am now. So that was really cool. But it's exciting not only to see that, to see our drivers go out and try something new, but also to see the attention that is coming towards our sport in the likes of Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin starting 23XI last year, in the likes of Pitbull becoming a major investor in this sport, in the likes of now the opportunity for more international drivers from other disciplines of racing to come to NASCAR and to try their hand, hopefully giving more exposure to their discipline. This is really exciting to me. I as somebody who I earlier in the show, I was preaching it, and I'll continue to preach it. I always, I try to learn other disciplines of racing. And while I'm on some time constraints at the moment that make it really hard, I always tell other NASCAR fans, especially when, a driver that they know very well is going out to another discipline, try to learn, enjoy it, have fun with it, try to learn and enjoy it, because ultimately racing, no matter what discipline of motorsport it is, you get somebody in one, then maybe another, it all feeds off of each other. So it's a really exciting time to see so much attention like that coming towards NASCAR, and it'll be really interesting. I'm hoping that they have a really good lineup of drivers who elect to come to drive that 91 car for a number of races, and I'm hoping too, I don't know what Jacques Villeneuve's schedule looks like for the remainder of the year, but was in the Daytona 500 earlier this year. That was a huge deal. So we'll see, but I'm very excited. If this is the direction that the sport continues to move, I think we'll start to see a lot of international attention come this way.
Well, having a Formula One world champion like Jacques Villeneuve, who had an Indy 500 and IndyCar champion, well past his prime, albeit coming over and running a race is one thing. Having a guy who is a world champion, oh man, it looks like we have rain at Charlotte or something. It just looked like there's, but they have the end of the stage. But with Zane Smith winning another stage, it looks like not a bad race either. But it's a great point you talk about with Kimi coming, the 2007 world champion. Somebody who dabbled in NASCAR in his retirement, from his first retirement from Formula One. with Kyle Busch Motorsports briefly, and ran this weekend. He ran the truck, and he also ran Xfinity program, a few races there with Perky Jerky, I think was the sponsor back then. Coming back to Trackhouse with that new program, it shows that there's many things that are good about this next gen car. I mean, I guess the Denny Hamlin Dale Jr. conversation on the download is very enlightening as well in regards to the future of the sport, since Denny is well vested in it as a co-owner of 2311, as a driver for Joe Gibbs Racing at the moment, but getting to the latter stages of his career, basically the end of his career. But getting guys like him, Kimi Raikkonen, coming over, I doubt he's going to run the full schedule. It's going to be occasional races, but maybe it would be nice to see guys like him be like, oh yeah, I'll run a Coda or I'll run Watkins Glen. The road course ringer, back in the day, the road course ringers coming and having a chance. Well, let's be honest here. This might be the best chance that a road course ringer has to compete in a cup race in a long, long time, because Trackhouse has great race cars this year. Suarez, of course, qualified on pole, won the first stage at Coda until he had his problems, and then Ross won his first race. So later. So the point is, you have that going. You have Kimi, just coming, having fun, motivated at a beautiful, one of the best racetracks in the world, one of the most legendary racetracks in the world. So there's a lot of good that can come from that. I honestly believe the way that Daniel Ricciardo's trending, there's a better chance that he'll be in a junior motorsports car next year than he'll be in a Formula One or an Indy car, or he'll be in a NASCAR vehicle of some sort. Maybe that's the angle. Maybe Trackhouse is starting to look at, let's go and get this car going, see if we can get people there, and be like, hey, Danny Rick, let's do this. We can't run the 3 car, can't run the 4 car or whatever. We can't run, but we can run this car. Want to go and run Cup? I mean, it would be pretty extreme to go and change that far, but that would be a big, to get a guy who was a multiple Formula One winner to NASCAR, to be akin to not to the same level, I would think, as Dario coming to NASCAR briefly, but he had come off of winning his first IndyCar championship at that point when he decided to come here with Ganassi, and that was at the end of a heyday basically in NASCAR. Once that COT came along, there was a big crash in 08, of course. There was a stock market and the businesses and all that, and that all cratered, which that took place. There's kind of that in 04, and when Nextel Sprint came in, then they cratered again in 08, and then we've kind of seen that.
It's about to happen again this year.
It's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen again, and we basically only have full fields, 36 cars, with most of these cup races and some of these series. We have issues. One of the only ones that's really healthy is IndyCar. Formula One doesn't want to go and have Michael Andretti join because they don't want to have to spread the wealth. But we'll see what all goes on with that. I figure this is the moment where I'll let Spencer and Joe let us know where we can find your stuff, because then we can get into the roundup. I don't want to keep you guys, it's already Friday evening, any longer, where we can find you guys, find your work, and and I guess whatever your social media accounts and all that. I'll throw to you first, Spencer, in regards to where we can find your work, your website, and I guess we can fans can meet you at St. Elmo's after the race, right? And you can go and have a Twitter, whatever they called, whatever, one of those meetups or whatever, like Pocris likes to do, or maybe you can have a meetup at the racetrack or wherever you're going to be. Let us know where we can go do that with you.
Sorry, I had to make sure my mic was back on. Yeah, like I said, my website's IndyCar1909.com. My personal social media handle is at SpencerNeff11. All my socials under that handle. Look for IndyCar 1909 at IndyCar 1909 on all the social accounts. I'll be in the paddock grandstand in stand 27, way back. If anybody's looking for me, I'll have the black and hat with the IndyCar 1909 logo. If anybody's there, be happy to meet you and talk some racing with you, or if anybody's out and about around Indianapolis during the next few days, or at St. Elmo's, be happy to meet you there too. So, I said that's where you can find me. Looking forward to a great weekend of racing.
Yeah, and thanks for coming on as always, man. And hopefully, as the year goes on, as we get closer to the finish of the IndyCar series this year, and maybe with some Road to Indy stuff going on and the rumor mill going on where certain drivers may be going. We've had a couple of things already break in regards to, of course, Pato signing again, but I'm not exactly, I didn't read the article that Marshall Pruitt put out there, but I have this feeling that there's a clause that might involve him going to Europe if he's signed to McLaren. So there is that. And then the likelihood that Alexander Rossi will be going there too. They're saying they want to have that third car full time, but I would think that it might be a signing for him to go and take over Pato O'Ward's car. That's just personally my feeling with that. But we will see what goes on with that. Thanks, man, for coming on. And for you, Joe, where can we catch you on your socials? I know you will be tweeting and letting us know everything during this weekend. I'll be able to let you go and do your coverage of the truck race here. We're in the second stage. So, and
this looks like a pretty good race. I think Matt Crafton just said he was going to find someone and punch him in the mouth. So I don't know what happened there, but fun stuff. But
that's just Matt Crafton any day that he's inside of a vehicle. So that's just kind of what he is.
You can find me on Twitter. That's where I'm most active, at Passero Jr. That's PASSEROJR. But yeah, I'm going to be tweeting some tonight during the remainder of this truck race. I am going to hopefully be tweeting tomorrow as well during Xfinity. And then, of course, I will be tweeting on Sunday. I'm going to try to... I was thinking about this earlier. I kind of want to try to cover the Indy 500. Obviously not to the likes of Spencer. Maybe I'll, for all my NASCAR followers out there, I'll keep a Twitter feed open for Jimmy Johnson. But yeah, I will definitely be on Twitter on Sunday night covering the Coca-Cola 600. And I'll be doing my stage points updates. Remember, 3 stages this week, not 2, 3. So I'll be doing those stage points updates. And then you can also find me at beyondtheflag.com. I don't have a current article planned. I'm in the middle of a brainstorming process. But we'll get some articles up there soon as well. And then if anybody is listening and is going to be at Pocono Raceway on July 24th for the newly announced M&M's Fan Appreciation 400, I will be at Pocono. I will not be covering the race as media, unfortunately, but I will be in the grandstand at Pocono. I'll probably be doing a little bit of tweeting. Don't know that I'll do a tweet up of any sort, but if you see me, come say hi. I'd love to talk racing with you.
Yeah, now you're piqued my interest in regards, because I saw the deal for the M&M's race, whatever the announcement there, and that caught my eye, and I was thinking about it, and it might be an idea. At least I'll have my off days. I might be able to take a day off on the Saturday and go up there for sure. And if you're going down there for both days, you should probably figure out a way to go and connect. And we can go and make it a real deal there. Could do a little live hit or something, do
Fortunately, I'm only going to be there on Sunday. But if you're
Yeah.
around, the Sunday ticket I know is, I think if you buy, I don't know if the deal's still happening, but after they announced the partnership, the first 400 fans to get a ticket through a certain link in their Instagram and Pocono's Instagram bio, first 400 fans get $18 off of a 200 level seat for, I believe it was section 207, 209, 245, and 248. So a pretty good deal for if you're thinking about going to Pocono.
Yeah, it's first 400. Let's see. I'm going on there right now to see if it's still active.
I also, sorry to interject here, guys, but I saw that they're doing some sort of, I think, interview or something with, I think Jamie Little's hosting it, and I want to say it's Kyle Busch, Ernie Irvan, Ken Schrader,
and David Gilliland.
Yeah, all the past
M&M's drivers.
Everybody but Elliott Sadler.
That's true. That is so true.
somebody else.
Elliott.
That is outstanding. I didn't think about that at all until you just brought that up. That is hilarious. Oh, God bless the bologna burger himself.
Ricky Rudd drove the Snickers car in 07. Why aren't they including him in that?
Well, Ricky Rudd's a different story. The Rooster's busy with life now. You can't really. It's okay. And anyways, Ricky Rudd could still beat the crap out of all those guys if he wanted to. But
they also left out David Gilliland. Gilliland, I think in 07.
No, David Gilliland is there.
Oh,
it's
he
Kyle
is there.
Busch, David Gilliland, and Ernie Irvan.
I had to mention Ricky Rudd because Ricky Rudd and I share a birthday, be it 36 years. I didn't know the story about Larry McReynolds' crew guy and the green means good.
Yep.
Or green means
Yep. That always bothers me. He told that story. There's many Larry McReynolds stories that kind of get to me with the 28 car because I always loved the Texaco Havoline car. And that's one of them that'll always bother me because he wins that race, he wins the championship probably.
well,
if he doesn't,
wasn't that DW's second last win?
That was his last win too, which makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Which makes it even worse for me because that squawking dog had another freaking Southern 500 that he shouldn't have won. But whatever. I'll go off on a DW tirade here before I let you guys go and have to do the roundup. That'd be a good one. Hating on old codgers, that's great. Since his fruit of a brother is not probably calling this a race and saying nothing of value. But yeah, so thanks to you, John. And see now you got me thinking because with the M&M's thing, I'm gonna go look at it. We're gonna see because they're gonna have it at the fan zone. That's possible. I might go and I have to talk to a couple of people. If I'm going to go and do that, I should go and do it. I have to go and look where the seats are, too. If you're going to go and fan appreciation offer. Yeah. I would do, yeah. And why wouldn't I go and sit up in the 200 level? If I'm going to go and bake myself, I might as well bake myself higher. But yeah, that's a great deal. That's something. And it's an M&M's race. So, and just anything that would go and get Ernie Irvan that for me as an Ernie Irvan fan dude, it would be pretty cool. So yeah, we will see about that. I'll let you guys go because we have a couple other things we have to cover, another racing series here. We thank you for coming on the GSP, and hopefully as the year goes on, we'll be able to reconnect and maybe do this because I think this is pretty fun, the four of us doing this together, collaborating. So we'll go and connect as we go along the rest of the year, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and it's been fun. I'm sure I'll be back.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys will be back too.
Yeah, thanks for
right on.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yep. All right, take care, everyone.
Guys. Enjoy the greatest weekend, greatest day in motorsports, and let us know. give us some good shots at Indianapolis there, Spencer. Let us know when you take that first bite of the shrimp cocktail and get your live facial reaction. I'm sure you're experienced with the shrimp cocktail, so.
I replied to Scott McLaughlin the other night. The first time I did it back in 2011, I took a big bite and my face turned red, and the waiter just looks at me and he's like, "I love that."
Yep. That's kind of like what I'm hoping for. Even though we're friends, I kind of want to see that, and that's cool. So we could use that as one of our pictures, since Josh has a picture of me getting a Charlie horse, and he has like the frozen, like he has the freeze frame of me prior to me going and suffering from the Charlie horse. So
and you were disconnected too. So
so it's just great. That's how we are friends that way. So we just like to see each other in pain. It's part of what makes the GSP so great.
Well,
and Joe,
I'll get my family on the horn then, because I've sent everybody the link to this podcast, so I'll get you in touch with them, or them in touch with you, for all the embarrassing stories and photos of me.
It's more, we'll keep it insular to us, and then if the Neff family wants to humiliate Spencer on their own, you could do that on @GripsterPod. You can send us pictures, or you can send it on my socials, and we'll go about it accordingly. But we'll talk about that later. And Joe will follow you. I'll be probably needing your Twitter feed to go and keep track of the race, because by that point, I don't know how far I'll be in the bag at the V. After watching at the barbecue that we're going to have there on Sunday. So by that point, I don't know. I think I might make it to about halfway personally. That's about as far as I can. And if the race is as bad as it has been in recent years, it may not even last that far. It might get me to lap 125, and then I'll go home and go to sleep. But we will see about that. So thanks, guys, for coming on.
All right. Thank you. Take care, y'all.
Yep. Take care.
So, so we will go and get into the roundup here in just a moment. Josh, I mean, anything, I guess before we get into the roundup, is there anything else you've been thinking about because I know you have your sim segment coming up here in a little bit, but any thoughts so far on the weekend we've had, or practice, or any of the stuff that's been happening before we move forward?
No, I mean, it's just exciting, for this weekend to come along, and unfortunately we had a couple of incidents today. Daniel Ricciardo getting into the wall, and Colton Herta getting on his lid, and then David Malukas also crashing in turn one. But should be an exciting weekend of racing, and between all three series, and each of them will have different tastes and different storylines, and we'll see what happens, and excited to watch all of it, and of course all the exciting other developments that that came out of the news, with Kimi Raikkonen going to try out NASCAR. That should be a fun event. And of course Pato Ward re-signing, so that could go either direction with IndyCar or in Formula One if they decide to put him in an F1 car. So we'll have to see. But I'm glad this weekend is here for sure.
Yeah, and it's just exciting, now. I mean, you have to work tomorrow, but really it's not going to be that long of a day, and it's been an interesting week for sure. Got a lot of stuff I have to take care of here, but it's just nice to know we're going to have a nice weekend of racing coming up, of course, with these three big races. But there's been plenty of racing took place last week. Of course, Formula One ran last week, the Spanish Grand Prix. We talked about that briefly. We talked about the the qualifying and the All-Star race for NASCAR and all that bit. Excuse me. So we'll get into the roundup here from last week. We have Formula 2, Formula 3, and W Series all ran at Catalunya in race 1 and both races in Formula 2, Felipe Drogovic won. Logan Sargent ended up finishing third in the first race, and Jehan Daruvula finished fourth. And that was in race 1. In race 2, not as Logan Sargent finished fourth. Jehan Daruvula had issues and DNF'd out of that race with a couple laps to go. The standings going into this weekend's race at Monaco sees Drogovic with a 25-point lead on Teo Pocher. Daruvula is leading a tight battle for third. It's only from third to 10th is 11 points, and even getting past that to 14 points between third and 12th. So it's really 16 to Vesti and 19 to Clement Novalak. So from 3rd to 14th is really pretty competitive. Logan Sargent right now is 6th in points. So good running for him, trying to go and in his first year in Formula 2. So I think he is the best rookie right now, or maybe, I think he's the best rookie right now, Logan Sargent, or other than Liam. Yeah, him and Liam Lawson are his only point. I think Liam Lawson's a rookie too. So there is that. Formula 3 going into this weekend, they'll be running, or they're not running. Their next race will be at Silverstone for whatever reason. So they ran at Spain. Victor Martins won race 2. David Vidalis won race 1. Jack Crawford, the American Red Bull Junior, finished 2nd. Juan Manuel Correa finished 5th. Kalen Frederick finished 7th. So pretty prolific for the American drivers there. 3 Americans in the top 7. And in race 2, as I mentioned, Martins won. Crawford finished 6th. Kalen Frederick 9th. Manuel Correa 10th. The standings see Martins up by 3 points on Roman Stanek, 10 points on Crawford. The battle for second in points is pretty tight. 9 points between 2nd through 4th. Artur Leclerc has a 2-point lead in Oliver Bierman. Franco Colapinto is in 7th. Correa 9th. Kushmini, the Indian driver, there's Kalen Frederick's 12th, Kushmini's 16th. So they'll have a long break between their next race there. The W Series continues the trend of Jamie Chadwick winning. Their next race will be at Silverstone as well. She wins over Abby Pulling and Alice Powell. Her teammate, Chadwick's teammate, Chloe Chambers, ended up a lap down in last, unfortunately. The point standing so far, Jamie Chadwick is 39 points ahead of Abby Pulling, and 45 points ahead of Alice Powell. Chambers is 11th. There's still 5 drivers that haven't scored points so far in the series going into the British Grand Prix weekend that'll be coming here in a month's time. World Superbikes were at Estoril last week, and it's been an interesting battle there. Johnny Ray and Toprak Razgadlioku, the defending world champion, there gave up a win in race 1 to to Alvaro Bautista, and then Johnny Ray won the sprint, the Super Pole race, and then held off Bautista in the second race. Vandermark, Fritz, Redding. I'm trying to find out what the heck happened to Garrett Gerloff, because Garrett Gerloff didn't even race in the race there last week at Garrett Gerloff, walking wounded. Yeah, third rider to withdraw. Oh, he crashed in practice. Okay. One of the weekend podium contenders and FP1 high side line. Oh, so Gerloff's okay. Yeah, so he got knocked out after Philip Ortel, and then Javi Flores took over for them. Michael Vandermark didn't replace him either, so there you go. He got hurt. I figured that's what it was. In regards to the races, though, I mentioned the results there. The points going into the next round of the championship, which will be in Misano a few weeks from now, sees the Alvaro Bautista up by 17 points on Johnny Ray. Raz Gadlioku in his title defense is, 52 points back. Gerloff, of course, missing this round. He's now 12th. He's had a rough start to the season anyway. Yamahas are a little bit off relative to... this factory Yamaha duo is third and fourth, but after that, it's not as good for those guys. We'll move to... We got through all those. Supercars at Winton. For once, it wasn't a win by the Red Bull team. The 888 effort. They actually lost a race for once, so that was nice. In race one, Cam Waters won in the Monster Energy Tickford Ford over Shane Van Gisbergen and David Reynolds. 3 Fords were in the top 5 in that race. In race 2, Cam Waters ended up, let's see, why is this loading so slow? Yeah, Van Gisbergen beat Cam Waters, and David Reynolds was third, Lee Holdsworth fourth, Chaz Mostert fifth, so the same top 5 from the first race. And then, there's that, and then in race 3, Cam Waters won over Shane Van Gisbergen, Andre Heimgardner, David Reynolds, Will Brown, Lee Holdsworth finished 6th. The standings heading into Darwin here in 3 weeks' time. Shane Van Gisbergen leads the points over Anton De Pasquale, who is 130 some odd points back, roughly, and Will Davison is third. So the two DJR cars are second and third. Cam Waters, after his great weekend, is now in 4th. And Brock Feeney, who's Van Gisbergen's teammates, in 5th in a tight battle between himself, Mostert, and David Reynolds. The last thing we'll get into in the roundup here is Rally Portugal. Last week, go back into that. Rally Portugal, which saw Loeb, or Sebastian Loeb, the good, the bad, future legend, more represent. Go through all that. Allowing Cali Rovampera. Cali Rovampera wins the Rally Portugal over Elfrin Evans, his teammate, and Danny Sordo in the Hyundai. So Toyotas in the top 4, Hyundai's in 3rd, 5th, and 6th. And then the first Ford was Pierre-Louis Loubet in 7th. Cars trying to see some of the people that fell out or had issues there. Sebastian Ogier had issues and had to come back in the race and got penalized, of course, with the forget what they call it, the Rally 2 format or whatever, where they go and restart, but they take like a huge penalty in time. You have some of the other people there in Rally, they're trying to look for Sebastian Loeb as well. Ogier, Sebastian Loeb was knocked out of the race, but he's looking to run more races, so that's cool. Ogier, of course, is busy with his sports car commitments in LMP2 in the World Endurance Championship there. So that is that for the roundup for this week. Josh, let us know after you've had a few days to experience and fully think about this. Any further thoughts of your triumph at Indianapolis and the hunger to want to go and do more after going and being able to win such a big race?
No, yeah, I mean, it's a huge confidence booster, and we talk about the event itself. I mean, it's glad to be able to finally win it. I mean, I've only second attempt, so I mean, it's probably 4 or 5 attempts if you count all the actual events I entered. But I mean, the consecutive, I've only been doing this 2 consecutive years. It's a great feeling to have and everything. But now go back to all the normal iRacing stuff, of course, and I'm actually not sure if I'll do anything this weekend on the sim, but maybe in the next couple of weeks and everything. But I mean, the iRacing Indy 500 win, I mean, it gives us confidence that we'll be able to try to actually make the Open Wheels 500 field in November and everything. So we'll see how that goes, and have to work on the setup, but obviously I already have a good set going for me, being in the having won the iRacing Indy 500, so should be a good attempt there. In recent weeks, of course, kind of doing topic switch from iRacing, but still on sim racing. It seems like, I don't know if you've paid attention to the news, the Motorsport games, they supposed to be the new NASCAR game developer and the new IndyCar game developer. Don't really have a whole lot of details, but it seems like their stock is like in the tank apparently, and they've been, I guess, like, investors have been trying to figure out like what's going on with this company, and if they're actually going to develop a game. And seems like it's all a scam that's coming out of this company, and it's unfortunate that we've trusted, or well, I guess NASCAR and IndyCar has trusted this company to develop their games for the consoles, and it doesn't look like much is going to come out with it. And I saw a post, I guess they had a vendor display, the IndyCar game had a vendor display at the F1's garage in Indianapolis, and looks like all it was just R Factor 2 with a simulator. They didn't actually develop anything for that, or show the game in progress. They basically displayed the game, what looks like to be R Factor 2, as the IndyCar game coming out next year. So that tells you how much they actually are in credibility. And there's some other people online that have better content or have a little bit more in-depth explanation, but in short, just looks like that IndyCar, especially IndyCar, because there's already NASCAR games, and of course they're somewhat already partnered with iRacing, but IndyCar is trying to partner with this company for their console games and trying to expand it into like the official IndyCar experience, I guess, and everything. And now I don't know what's going to come out of this game, but it's unfortunate because we deserve to have a good IndyCar game, deserve a good NASCAR game for consoles and even for PC outside of iRacing if you want, more game, or I guess series specific gameplay. So that's all I got to say about that. But as of course, you can always find the stream where the iRacing Indy 500 replays, both fixed and open setup, along with all the clips from that on the Twitch thing at twitch.tv/usailor2. Go watch that and check that out. Follow it, subscribe or whatever, and we'll have the content out when we do, and I'll make sure to let everybody know when I go live there. And then transition into the close, of course, you can follow me at JP Huffline on Twitter and all social media platforms, and follow me for all my takes, and of course follow our Grip Strip Pod handle at Grip Strip Pod, and follow both me and Phil and see our takes as we go throughout this Memorial Day weekend and watch all the great racing we have to have. And of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Grip Strip Podcast, or Grip Strip Podcast on YouTube, and subscribe to our latest and greatest that we have there. Of course, we already have our episode 115 with Joe and Spencer, which is up there now on YouTube, and of course we'll go ahead and produce this one and have that up there soon. So go there, like, subscribe, and comment, and follow for more content. Of course, I did start the recording of episode 115 when we were in the pre-episode streaming, so you get a little bit of bonus content, and as we kind of talked amongst ourselves before officially recording the podcast. So check that out. So glad to always talk about it with you, Phil, and let you close out the night for us.
Absolutely, brother. It's having fun as always, and having good friends on. We're good friends. We do our thing here usually once a week, but this week we had to do it twice because it's such a big weekend. We'll be back next week early on episode 117 to recap all these big races that took place. Monaco, Indy, and Charlotte on the Grip Strip Podcast. You can follow me at Philip G. Matthew. I'll be on there this weekend tweeting, especially on Sunday. I'll be available. I'll also be on the Grid Talk Podcast. Unfortunately, I missed last Monday's hit previewing the Monaco Grand Prix, but I'll be on the post-race show for the Grid Talk Podcast. That's George Housen and company over there. Ruby Price will be hosting that show, so it'll be nice to be on there prior to going over the V for the barbecue. And I'll be tweeting out about the Indy 500 and Coke 600 from there, more than likely. Then we'll come back on Monday and recap all the races here on the show. Follow me there on Twitter. You can follow us at GripStripPod on Twitter as well for our content and maybe any other stuff. Of course, our YouTube page, as Josh mentioned, the Grip Strip Podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Podbean, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Verbal. Looking to expand out past that, of course. Just glad that we're, being able to invite good people on. Hope to have more great people on as the year continues. Lots of great racing going on here as the summer picks up. So we'll have plenty to talk about on the Grip Strip Podcast before we get into football season. Really taking off in the month of July and August. So have a lot to lead in on that. So we thank you for listening to Grip Strip Podcast. We thank you for your support. In terms of anything you want us to go and talk about or cover, hit us up on our socials. See if you want to be on the show. Let us know as well. We're interested to have new people on. It'd be great to have some new, fresh talent in regards to people who love this sport on the Grip Strip Podcast. So we thank you for listening. We thank you for all your support, and take care of one another. Be good to one another. It is a tough time in our society in general, and should be nicer to people. Make life easier. And for those who sacrifice, we thank you, the men and women who have paid that sacrifice to give us the freedom we have during this Memorial Day weekend. And we're grateful to you, and we're grateful to those who do serve right now for us that actually are serving and keeping us safe as well. So for all that and for everybody, thank you for listening to Gripster Podcast. Take care. Goodbye. All right.